For sure. It's Evan Proven. We are Sun Certified Builders Cooperative Limited. We are a multi-stakeholder co-op, but we're controlled by our workers. And our primary operation is around energy efficient building construction. So we do new builds, commercial and residential, or small commercial I should say. And we also specialize in what we call deep energy retrofits, where we take an existing building and completely recapitalize the exterior to a very high level of performance, so similar to what you could achieve on a new build. I'm the vice president of the board, and I also do all of our sales and marketing and estimating and business development. My family, I would say, has always kind of had a history of activism and social values of, equality and social justice. I remember, from a really early age, my parents being really involved in various movements around social justice, like Tools for Peace. I remember them going in with a bunch of folks and buying a bunch of used surgical equipment from the hospital in Glenella. I was looking at pictures on my laptop the other day that, it was my dad and my grandpa building a shipping crate to ship all this stuff down to Nicaragua. So there's this history of activism and social justice there that made the co-op model make a lot of sense to us, but then also just timing-wise, we had already been talking about creating something bigger. Like my dad and my cousin Donald and I were all doing independent contracting for a period of time, collaborating on some things here and there, but nothing formal. And so we were looking at formalizing an incorporation structure where we would all be equal partners in the business, but we wanted a model that would allow us to expand. So not just having like a partnership with, whatever, 3 or 4 equal partners, but a model that allowed us to bring in more and more people and to scale it up. A workers' co-op doing construction is a pretty novel thing. We're very unique in that sense. There's not really any of us around. There's no other builder co-ops in Canada. There used to be 4 that I knew of. So then when we incorporated, it was 2012, which was the first international year of the co-ops. So then there was all of this press around co-ops, and at the provincial level, there was the Cooperative Development Office that had staff and had grants available to help pay for incorporation, and staff that helped us through the process. I think that was also a kind of an important factor in why we chose the co-op model to incorporate. So we're not a huge co-op. We have 6 members, worker members, and we have 3 supporting chair members. I'm an alumni of the Master Management Co-ops and Credit Unions program in St. Mary's. I went through that program, started in 2018, so after we incorporated. Through that program, I really got to learn more about operationalizing the cooperative values and principles in your business model. And I think we're already doing that, but that allowed me to become way more intentional about how we did that. We bank with credit union. We're insured by cooperators. We purchase materials wherever we can from Homestead Co-op in Portage la Prairie, or other Pembina Co-op, Heritage Co-op. There's a lot of the small towns around Winnipeg have a co-op home center. Any opportunity that we can to patronize another co-op, we're looking at it. But it has to make sense from a business perspective as well. We're a leader in energy efficient construction in Manitoba. There's not a lot of other companies that are doing the same standard that we are. We see such a huge potential for the market to grow, not only because if we're going to actually meet our carbon emission reduction targets or greenhouse gas emission reduction targets, we have to start building differently, and we have to start retrofitting all the existing buildings that we have. We're not guarding intellectual property in the same way that another company would, because we really want to proliferate this building method. We do a lot of tours through our shop here. We're bringing architecture firms in. We're bringing affordable housing providers in, so that we can show them the implications of investing in your building envelope and your cost of ownership and operating costs. So the building envelope is your air vapor barrier, your insulation, and your exterior siding. And so the combination of those 3 things are what can seriously contribute to lower cost of building ownership. Right now, we have a prefabricated wall system that we've developed for new builds that we call it a modified Larson truss. And so it incorporates the structural framing onto the truss. So we manufacture those trusses here in the shop. and then we use them to assemble wall panels that then get shipped to the job site and craned into place. So that is one way that we're trying to reduce the upfront cost of doing energy efficient building, because that I think is a hurdle that a lot of people kind of struggle to get past. But actually you're paying more upfront so that you can realize a rate of return on that money, because anything that you invest in getting to a high performance building standard is going to pay you back. What we really want to do is take this prefabricated wall system that we've developed and come up with an attachment method that allows us to use a panelized approach to a retrofit as well. So similar to how the new construction would work, the panels would show up with a crane, you slap them onto the exterior of an existing building, move the windows and doors out, put new siding on it, pack it full of insulation, and you've essentially completely recapitalized the building exterior. We use a financial modeling tool called CFAR, building valuation. It does a few things. So it's a comparison model, so it compares a code-built iteration of your building and the high-performance building, and it provides a cost projection over that 60 years. And it gives you a dollar figure for the total cost of building ownership savings over that period of time. And what that typically looks like is whatever the capital cost of the construction of the building is, you will save that amount in operating costs. Energy costs are reduced, but then the other thing that people don't really think about is you're typically using more resilient building materials that require less maintenance, and because they're more resilient, they last longer. So your recapitalization periods are fewer and less costly. You know, another reality that we're starting to face is forest fires. Non-combustible building exterior, such as metal or stucco, are really important in, or going to be really important in a lot of areas that are susceptible to wildfire. When we're building, we're putting in an extra large filter box for our heating and ventilation equipment, so that you can install HEPA filters or MERV 13 filtration, so that you're removing that particulate from the air. I mean, when we started out, we really had a focus on single-family residential. We wanted to build new houses that were energy efficient. 2 or 3 years ago now, we kind of reviewed our strategic plan and our vision to make sure that that was still keeping in line with our values and principles. The conclusion was that it really didn't fit the bill anymore. Single-family residential certainly is an area that requires a lot of attention, because there's so many houses being built right now and so many houses that need to be retrofit. But the only people that were coming to us were people that had a lot of money or equity and had the means to be able to overcome that cost burden at construction. In terms of making energy efficient buildings accessible, we're not really doing that if we're just focused on single-family residential. There's a lot of really good research out there showing the community benefits of co-ops, but worker co-ops especially, because they're not focused on serving capital, they're focused on serving the workers. And so you're paying higher than average wages typically. You're implementing benefits programs. The other thing that I think is important to a lot of workers is, or worker co-ops, is diversity. When we look at the makeup of worker co-ops in general, I think you'll see that a lot of them have quite a more diverse membership than other companies would. And we specifically have a diverse hiring criteria here, because we want the makeup of our membership to be reflective of the diversity of our community. When you look at diversity from a governance perspective, it allows for all of these novel ideas and perspectives to be incorporated into how you're operating. So I think there's a huge benefit there, and I think that is really well represented in worker co-ops. The other benefits then trickle down to the community, unlike capitalism, because you have people that are getting paid a better wage who also just have this mindset of community. One thing that sticks out for me is this idea of, like, instead of I'm gonna be rich, like, why not we're all going to be rich? Why can't we bring everybody up along with us? And I think the other thing that we need to get past, and what co-ops achieve, is equity and fairness, because the idea that one person can make money off of someone else's labor, I think, is really hard on our society. And it's gotten more and more extreme, where you're looking at the wage gap between the executive level and the worker level is growing and growing. So I'm the co-president of the board of the Canadian Worker Co-op Federation, so pretty good pulse on what's happening in the worker co-op world. We often see the case where members will be asked to be individually liable for taking on debt, even though you are a limited liability corporation. Well, say for example, when we're applying for a credit card, each of our directors has to be individually liable for the debt. So it seems to me that there is a disconnect or a misunderstanding. People just don't quite understand what we stand for. And the other part of it is we're typically way more fiscally conservative than other businesses. If you look at the statistics on the success of cooperatives versus the success of conventional business models, co-ops outpace conventional business models 9 times out of 10. You know, they last longer, and I believe it's because they're way more conservative fiscally in how they operate. But the other side of it that I think is a challenge, I think there's a mindset among a lot of people that work in cooperatives that making a profit is bad. And the word profit is maybe part of that issue. We call it a surplus here, right? Where we want to run a surplus. But the other side of it is that when you have a profitable business model, it allows for more impact. And the difference is that instead of taking all that profit and stuffing it into one person's pocket, first of all, we're spreading it around to our members. So they're getting paid a dividend. They're going to share in the profits of the co-op. But then we're also taking that and putting it back into the community. Our overhead includes a donation to some community organization, an education and training pool for our membership. Profitability equals sustainability. If you're only breaking even, there's only so long that you're going to stick around, or if you're not profitable. So really understanding the business side of things is, I think, really important. The thing that I'm working on right now is a submission. We're submitting an expression of interest for a federal program that is seeking to demonstrate gains in productivity around deep energy retrofits. As our service recipient, we're using an Indigenous-owned affordable housing provider. They own over 80 single-family residential homes in Winnipeg. So that would, have a big impact for that organization, but just in terms of a demonstration project, being able to show that we can apply a panelized retrofit approach to a variety of different building typologies is going to be really beneficial in terms of advancing the research. And we're also partnering with Build Incorporated, which is a social enterprise here in Winnipeg that predominantly hires Indigenous people that are experiencing significant barriers to employment or coming out of justice programs. Working with an organization like Build, again, they're social purpose organization, so we've got shared values. They're providing employment opportunities for people that would otherwise have a very hard time entering the job market. We're focusing on affordable housing as our service recipient, and then the other side of it is then furthering my research around the multi-stakeholder network development and actually implementing a working model where we have a social enterprise, we have an affordable housing provider. Efficiency Manitoba is signing a letter of support for us so that we can have them help to leverage funding streams to support on the financial side of things and on the technical expertise side of things. We've got Retrofit Canada, which is a nonprofit organization that is compiling case studies on all of the different retrofit methods that people are trying out in Canada right now. And they have all of this technical expertise and research expertise. We're just seeing so much potential for us, especially if we can scale up to meet the demand for these, because even the affordable housing providers that we're talking to, a lot of them are looking at that 50 to 70 unit range. So if we can scale up in this shop that we have right now to be able to meet the demand for 50 to 70 unit buildings, it'll be a total game changer for us.